Well, a group of Jewish parents and schools have filed a lawsuit challenging a law in California. The measure excludes religious entities from using special education funds to serve children with disabilities. While those resources are not available to religious schools, they are used at secular private schools. We go now to Maury Litwack, managing director of the Orthodox Union, which is aiding the families in this case. Maury, so good to have you on. Quickly, for those that aren't familiar with Loffman versus California, can you bring us up to speed on the case?
Well, the federal law states that through something called IDEA funding, that parents should be able to really choose the school of their choice when it comes to those parents who have special needs students. So if, for example, you have a special needs student and you need funding or resources for that, IDEA funding is supposed to be almost portable, allowing you to take that funding and utilize it whether or not it's in a public school, or if you can't utilize a public school, using it in a non-public school. Unfortunately, in the state of California, there's something really bizarre going on where they are providing that funding, that IDEA funding, that funding for children to private schools, as long as they are not religious schools. If they're religious schools, no. But if they're religious schools, no. But if you are a private secular school, you are allowed to have the funding, which is only something happening in California and is what the heart of this lawsuit is all about.
Yeah, Maury, last year the Supreme Court struck down a Maine law that excluded religious schools from the state tuition assistance program. That said, I mean, how different is your case from Carson versus Macon, if at all?
It's very similar, and that's one of the reasons this case was brought by the Beckett law firm, which really specializes in this and has done incredible work around the country in righting this sort of injustice against religious institutions, religious organizations, religion. And when you look at that case in the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court was saying then was that in Maine, that if there was a voucher program that could be utilized, parents had the right to use that for faith-based schools. You couldn't explicitly exclude that, as Maine was doing, and saying, well, we'll give it to parents, and if the parents want to send their kids to a private school, that's okay, as long as the school isn't religious. The Supreme Court said that is unconstitutional. You cannot exclude religious institutions like that. You can't discriminate against parents. And so the California lawsuit looks exactly very similar to what happened in the Supreme Court, and that's what we're fighting against. Really something that at this point is unconstitutional, what's taking place in California.
Yeah, I want to bring this up because critics may say this, why not just send your children to a public school if they have more resources and the funding? What would be your response, and why do the families involved in this case feel that's not an option for them?
Well, first and foremost, there is sort of this knee-jerk reaction in America that if you want to send your kids to a school, that's fine, and the government will pay for it as long as it's a public school, and then nobody else should receive that funding. That's really falling apart at this point. Around the country, we're seeing programs passed that are challenging that, and parents are happy about it, and legislators are happy about it. In this case in particular, when even those opponents hear this, they are outraged about this because, again, the state of California is allowing this for private schools as long as they're not religious. And so what we are seeing here is that really this is turning conventional wisdom on its head, but also the personal stories of parents is what's really at the heart of this. So, for example, a Jewish parent who's raising their child within the Jewish faith and sending their kids to a school that isn't Jewish faces unprecedented challenges, especially when we're talking about children with special needs, so that we have documented cases of those students going to a public school because they can't go to a Jewish school, and now they're eating non-kosher. Now they're not able to celebrate their holidays, their religious holidays. This is something that anybody of any faith should be outraged about that's taking place in California today.
Maury, before you let it go, we have about 30 seconds left or so. Curious, what is next for this case? And also, what could be maybe the larger implications to all of this for even other faiths?
Well, we're working with an incredible group of parents who are dedicated to fighting this. And we're appealing this to the Ninth Circuit, and we'll continue this fight as far as we have to take it, because it is about injustice. It is about discrimination. It is about the Supreme Court saying this is wrong, and the California courts literally ignoring this, challenging it. And so we really are proud about the fact that this fight continues. But I think that if you're listening to this in any other state, around the country, in any of the other 49 states, you should say this fight's for you as well, because it is wrong to discriminate. It is wrong to exclude faiths from their ability to practice. And in this case, it is wrong to do that with children with special needs. This is just, it's gone too far. So we need to win this case. This is really about religious freedom in America.
And Maury, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much for coming on. We're going to continue to follow this case.
Thank you.